anything, and then you're all revved up, and then you go, and I'm like,
because we need that whiteboard that we have somewhere so we know what the hell we're supposed to say in the very beginning.
it's the same thing we always say. You just follow my lead, okay?
Okay, I'm not a good follower though.
Too bad. I'm gonna beat you into submission.
Oh, that's a fetish. I don't know. I'm not into that.
I know, me either.
Welcome to Bloody Shed Lounge.
Welcome to Bloody Shed Lounge. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone.
Hey, how are y'all doing out there? We're doing good. Don't have to all answer at once.
Yeah. That might confuse us.
Yeah. So what did we get assigned with today this time? We agreed to
We're talking about fetish crimes.
fetishes gone wrong? Yeah, fetish crime?
That sounds right. Yeah, fetish crimes.
Sort
fetishes.
of. Well, okay, so I guess we should clarify. That was our assignment, so to speak, right? It probably changed a little from our initial thing, because I think some of the stuff we're going to talk about you wouldn't necessarily call a fetish.
Exactly. And that's really kind of how we discovered this, that there's this broad term fetish. And we want to make a little disclaimer here that even though some of the topics that we're approaching and discussing tonight, they're lumped into this fetish category, but we want to make sure that you understand that we want to be sensitive to anyone listening and make sure that it's understood that we're not making any judgments on anyone. We want to try to be as sensitive as we can, but at the same time, we also want to have fun and just
talking about
us.
Murdery things.
Right.
Right.
So we definitely don't mean to offend anyone
At all. We are all inclusive. We're just telling weird stories. And
Exactly.
I guess before we get started, though, we should ask that you like us, share us. Don't forget to tell all your friends about us and
tell your fetish community, tell your mistress,
That would be an interesting thing to be able to say, hey, yeah, we're big in the fetish community, our podcast.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, well, let's not go into that. Okay, so a fetish, I'm going to ask a question I already know the answer to. Mm-hmm. Of the big fetishes, what's one fetish, because I think we agree on this, that you just don't get?
Well, I'm not into the bondage thing and like the foot fetish, I don't really get that.
I don't get the foot fetish. And there's even, you were telling me this the other night, there's even people who are into giant feet. My God, that's even worse.
I don't remember telling you that.
I think so. Yeah, you said
no.
No,
I was Bigfoot, the actual Bigfoot.
Oh, that's what you meant?
There's people that create like fake Bigfoot porn.
Really?
Yeah, people that are obsessed with Bigfoot.
So I wonder, does that ever go into the furry community thing?
I don't know. No, I think those are two separate things. Furries are, we'll get into this, but furries is like a fandom thing, and even though there's fetishes within that, but what I was telling you is that there's people that get into Bigfoot, the creature.
Well, now I know. If you didn't know, now you know.
There's something out there for everyone.
There is. I mean, but even the foot thing can get a little, just as a lot of this stuff is happening right now. I think everyone's trapped with the virus and stuff, and they're just acting out in weird ways. Just this year in Australia, there's some accountant, Calvin Chow, in Sydney that got caught posing as a cop so he could take pictures of women's feet and sniff their shoes. He would go knock on the door. Ma'am, I'm investigating a case where...
of stinky feet?
No, people are smuggling drugs in their shoes.
What?
And eventually some smart lady's like, I'm thinking bullshit here. So while he's taking pictures of her shoes, she's taking pictures of him to send to the cops. So yeah, what the fuck?
That's desperate.
That's a lot of work.
Why don't you just go to your local thrift store and buy some old shoes?
It's not the same. It doesn't come with a woman attached.
Oh, he wants the danger of it all.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't get the foot fetish thing, so I can't really.
Toe jam, none of that stuff.
You know what? I don't know of a lot of women that have a foot fetish for men. I've heard of women having a foot fetish for women.
Thank God. I have hideous feet. I do not know.
Well, I think a lot of men don't have attractive feet. So.
Probably all men. You can say it.
No, I know I have met men that have attractive feet, but it's not very common.
I believe that. But okay, so let's cover. We got to throw out a couple of names because you know it's going to come up. When we started digging into this, and for anyone who doesn't know, we do our best to try and not tell too much about what each other is researching so that we don't, so we're actually genuinely shocked and titillated.
Right. We like it to be a little more conversational because part of our inspiration for all of this was the conversations we actually had just hanging out together and surprising each other throughout our normal conversations. So we kind of tried to keep that aspect of it.
Right. But one, I think this probably happened to you too. It was hard to find the unique ones because everyone and their brother seems to die from asphyxia-related fetish things, you know? Like everyone knows the famous names that David Carradine probably died from autoerotic fatality, right?
Mm-hmm. You know who his daughter is?
Who's his daughter?
Martha Plimpton.
Oh, I know the name. Who's Martha Plimpton?
She was in all kinds of like 80s movies. And,
okay.
Yeah, really famous. She dated River Phoenix and
that didn't
super
go well.
Famous.
You know, Michael Hutchins might have also.
Yeah, I've heard that.
We don't know that. That was his.
We don't know for sure, but
that was his girlfriend, Polly Yates, saying that.
I don't know. I kind of think maybe it is what happened.
You think so? I don't know. I didn't go into it, but because it seemed like, Jesus, there's all these stories about that. Where's the unique one? And then I dug into this, and you can talk about it, but I dug into a word that you have corrected me on, that we are not to use the word apotemnophilia anymore. No. So what is the word we're supposed to use?
Well, it's now called BID, which is body... Let me read my own writing here. It's body integrity identity disorder.
Okay.
So we'll just call it BID.
BID. Okay. So what's I dug into it a little bit, but I left this to you.
Well, without going too much into BID itself, I don't know if it's necessarily a disorder or what it is, but it's a thought process that that the person wants a limb amputated.
Right. Okay. So we said that, but just to reiterate, as we dug into some of these stories, kind of you find out, that's not really a fetish, but we're going to talk about them because if you're going to look this stuff up, then these are the stories that will come up. Right.
These are the stories that come up. And it's also, I think, as we become more knowledgeable and more self-aware as human beings, we realize some of these things aren't actually fetishes. Mm-hmm. So we want to be clear that just because we're pulling it in within our stories of fetishes, we understand that some of these aren't actually fetishes.
Right. But all right. So all of the disclaimers aside, tell me this fucked up story.
So in 1998, Phillip Bondy paid Dr. John Brown $10,000 to amputate his leg in Tijuana, Mexico.
There's your first problem. Tijuana, Mexico is where you decided to do this.
Well, and he had been obsessed with having this done for 20 years. And Dr. Brown had lost his medical license in 1977 for some botched gender reassignment surgeries. And he decided to then start practicing again in Mexico.
Jesus.
And he had performed over 600 gender reassignment surgeries, but there were a lot that went right and a lot that went wrong. And when he lost his license in 1977, it was due to, in particular, one patient that he had done a scalp move, where he moved the woman's scalp to the hairline to be further down.
Why?
And something went wrong.
That seems like an odd choice.
Well, often in these gender reassignment surgeries, it's more than just the actual. It's also
I know
a
that,
lot.
But I guess I'm confused by the
maybe
hairline.
her hairline was far back, and she wanted it to come down closer.
Maybe it was just like, while you're at it, could you fix my hairline?
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, those kind of surgeries happen often. So that was really kind of the case where in San Francisco when he lost his license.
Right, and so he decides, you know what? I haven't fucked up enough lives.
He was really all about the money, I think. And he kind of was over egotistical, like he really believed in himself. Like he didn't put a lot of thought into a lot of these surgeries and just kind of, a quack, as they say.
Yeah.
So Phillip Bondy, and he had a best friend. He was from New York City, and he was 79 years old at the time. But he had a best friend named Greg Firth that they met 20 years prior, and they had this in common, this BI bid.
Okay.
That's what sort of bonded them together, that they both wanted a leg amputated.
Okay.
And Greg Firth is interesting, too, because he was or is a psychologist that actually wrote about this affliction in 1970s and sort of coined the original term for it.
Apotemnophilia?
Yes.
Okay.
And since then, they've moved away from using that term. Now they've moved into bid. But so they were friends, and this is what they bonded over. And they had both researched different surgeons that would perform this surgery and finally settled on Dr. John Brown.
Wait, you're telling me there were options?
There are options. There in the UK, there's surgeons that will perform this, but they were unable to for whatever reason.
Laws.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that Bondy was quite elderly, and he had some pre-existing conditions that I think any other doctor would have looked at him and realized this guy isn't eligible for any of these surgeries. But our Dr. John Brown didn't do any of those.
Well,
tests.
I mean, at this point, he's as old as the rest of them, right? He's in his 70s.
Well, he was he was 77, and Phillip Bondy was 79. But Greg Firth originally had scheduled it. He went there and took one look at Dr. Brown's office, which was really his apartment.
Oh.
And saw how dirty it was, and saw his assistant coming in with a butcher knife. And
Bad sign.
Yeah, there was tons of red flags. So he backed out. And Phillip Bondy was really upset about it and said, well, how could you do this? This has been our dream all along. So he took his place.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask, wait, so I don't like this, so I'll send my friend, but...
Yeah, he gladly took Greg's place and
dear God.
Went through with the surgery. So he shows up the day of the surgery and goes through with it, but the anesthesia didn't work the entire time, so he was awake through a lot of it.
Oh, God, it's like Civil War all over again.
It's terrible.
Just start hacking away at my leg, please.
But Dr. Brown just pulls out kind of an old saw. It's not even a real medical saw, and slices straight
like a
through.
Contractor saw.
Kind of, and slices straight through his limb without doing it at an angle to leave enough skin.
Right,
what
to
they
fold
call
over?
There's a word for it, but a flap to fold over to cover the wound, to
so
cover
you make like
the
little
bone.
envelope fold or whatever.
Exactly.
You do.
He didn't leave enough skin for that. So when he sewed up the wound, the nerves died, and there wasn't enough skin to properly close it.
Oh my God, that's horrible. So it's basically an open wound, damn near.
Practically, yeah. And there was this whole medical terminology for it, which I'm not going to get into. But he drops him off. He takes him to San Diego and drops him off at a hotel for him to recover. Mm-hmm. And the following day, Bondy calls Dr. Brown and says, I'm bleeding profusely. I'm in so much pain. What should I do? And the doctor tells him to just take more pain pills and doesn't come to check on him.
He basically says, walk it off. Oh, wait.
Right. Oh, my gosh.
Sorry.
Terrible. But Dr. Brown also, that day, the following day of the surgery, he drove out into the middle of the desert and tossed the leg. Which they're supposed to be tagged. Like anytime you have, whether it's a procedure like this, it has to go through pathology, and there has to be tagged and accounted for. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. He drove out to the desert and disposed of it.
What if I want my leg back?
Well, that's not possible, I don't think. But anyway, so he threw the leg away in the desert, and then didn't continue to follow up on Bondy. And after 2 days, I believe it was 2 or 3 days, however long it was, Bondy stopped answering the phone when his friend Greg was calling to check on him and had passed away, basically. Mm. So when investigators originally contacted his friend Greg, he lied and said that he had been in a car accident in Mexico, But investigators knew right away that wasn't true because he didn't have any other
Yeah, you don't only tear off a leg and have nothing else happen to you.
Exactly. So what had happened is because he didn't have the flap and there wasn't enough skin, gangrene had set in, and that's what killed him.
Oh, man, his leg rotted.
Right.
Eee.
So they were able to arrest Dr. Brown, and he was charged with second-degree murder, which is pretty strict for a medical doctor to receive a conviction of second-degree murder. But he was sentenced to 15 years, and he passed away in 2010 at age 87.
Oh, wow.
But there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories about him, which I think we can revisit him when we do another episode, maybe about like botched medical procedures or criminal medical procedures, because yeah, there was a lot to his background.
I'll probably be horrified through the entire thing because you know me. I don't really...
You'll be very queasy.
I'm talking... This is the show we've decided to do, and I don't like blood. Go figure.
Right. Yeah. I can understand, though. It does make anyone feel queasy.
It's insane. I mean, these are like, quote unquote, normal-ish people. Like, normally you come across the more absurd things with... like serial killers, like Albert Fish. Like there's a guy who did things we won't go into. He was a serial killer who had numerous fetishes. One of the most gross was that he would stick needles in his groin and he'd leave them there so long they'd start rusting. Like you have a fucking rusty needle in your ball sack, dude.
Wow. Oh, but also I should mention that Greg Firth and Phillip Bondy, this reminds me, they used to make incisions in their leg and then try to make it infected so that someone would have to cut their leg off. And that's not uncommon for this disorder. That a lot of people do that.
So tell me about this disorder. You were mentioning this earlier about that's the reason that we could say this might not be a fetish is because scientists
have done some studies where they've done like CAT scans and neurological studies, and I don't feel that I'm really knowledgeable enough to speak on it at length, but they've discovered that there's some portion of the brain that they can see that's affected, that they feel like it is something to do with potentially a brain injury. And you said it was in one hemisphere of the brain? One side, like if it's affected on the left side of the brain, then it's the right side of the body that is affected. And I'm not so sure how many studies have been done, but I do think there is something to be said for that. Jesus. I think a couple that I came across was kind of a variation of this. Aderacinism. I don't know that.
Yeah. Is the fetish or desire of ripping off your own beans and franks.
Really?
Yeah.
Beans and franks.
Well, okay. Bean and franks. It'd be weird if you had two. Well, I shouldn't say that because maybe we have a listener that has two.
You never know.
You never know. Hey, out there.
Oh, my gosh.
36-year-old man he arranged online to meet a guy named Ryan King, who was 27, at a hostel this is in Australia. I don't know why I'm finding all these stories in Australia this time around. They met at a little hostel in Brisbane to basically have King satisfy his fetish of removing his testicles. That
was the same from the Armin Meiwes story.
Very similar to that.
His victim wanted that done.
Yeah, so apparently that happens more than we thought. Mm-hmm. And all King did was he studied up on the internet how to, because I don't know, is there like websites, how to chop off a testicle?
I'm not even going to attempt to Google that.
No, I was looking some of this stuff up on my work computer. I really shouldn't have done that.
No.
I should not have done that. Anyway, he shows up with medical equipment and some anesthetic and, removes one of the testicles. And apparently things went horribly wrong and they couldn't get the wound stitched up. Oh. And so an ambulance is called and shows up and they look in King's home and he had held on to a penis and a testicle sitting in his freezer.
He'd done it before?
I don't know. I didn't have much time to dig into this story. I didn't really want to dig into this story.
Oh, my God.
I sat cross-legged through most of this story.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, maybe it was a different one because I guess after he removed the testicle, the police say that he flushed it down the toilet. So I don't know. Maybe it was somebody else's testicle. Yeah.
Wow. That's scary.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many insane fetishes out there. And some of them, can they come up with shorter names? Like at least yours, they came up with a shorter name, you know, the bid, right?
Well, yeah, that's abbreviated, but...
Right. So, okay, let's see if I can do this. Ursusagalmatophilia. Ursusagalmatophilia.
Okay. It may have been renamed now.
Yeah, it's called furries. Animal costume fetish.
Good. I like furries better.
You like furries better?
Although and here's another disclaimer, they say that it's not a fetish, it's fandom.
Right. I think there are some, but it's like everything. It's a sliding scale. You can't just assume everyone that likes wearing costumes is doing it to get it on.
Right. And it's such a large community, surprisingly large, that I'm sure within that community there are separate fetish communities within that large community.
Did you find a story of a furry experiment gone wrong?
Well, I do have a story of a furry murder, and it actually starts with a brony. A brony that met furries. I know, you're so confused.
Is this like a brownie?
A brony is someone that identifies with My Little Pony. It's a male. I know. See, I knew that you don't know what a brony is. Okay.
No, I don't know what a brony is.
A brony is a man or a male, an older male, not a little boy, not a child, but a male that is obsessed, or I wouldn't say fetish is the right word, but we'll use fandom. Has a fandom obsession
ponies.
with My Little Pony. Everything My Little Pony.
The cartoon or the goofy little toys?
All of it. So they identify with My Little Pony, and they're called bronies. And there's a big brony community out there. And my story starts with...
I apologize if anyone out there, I don't mean to laugh, but dude.
It's actually a big community of these bronies.
Really?
Yeah, there's documentaries about it.
Oh my God, there's documentaries. I'm an asshole. Okay,
there's
tell
even
your story.
There's like specific fan films that are made for bronies.
Really?
Yeah, it's all different.
It's a little too rainbowy for me.
Well, that's the part they like.
I guess so. There's always some, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Anyway.
No. Okay, so my story starts out with brony Joshua Acosta. He was an Army private mechanic, and he actually did carry a special My Little Pony figurine with him in his Army backpack.
Okay.
But he met Frank Felix, who was age 27. And I think Joshua Acosta was in his early 20s at this time. And Caitlin Goodwill Yost through an online furry community website. That's how these three people meet. Mm-hmm. And Caitlin Goodwill was only 17 at the time when she met these other two men. Her parents were also involved in the furry community. Her mom was, I can't remember her furry nickname, but she was kind of considered this like furry mama.
It's a fursona.
Her fursona, that's right. I don't remember her fursona, but she was like a furry mama and she helped a lot of the younger furries and helped with them with their, they're not called costumes. I don't know what they're called.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, but she would assist a lot of these younger furries, and they were involved in two different special groups. There was like the Furry Bowling Club, and then an older furry group that went back to the 1980s that had these monthly meetups and house parties and stuff. So
furries have been going at this since the 80s?
I guess so. I didn't realize
bowling?
That. Yeah, they go bowling. That's like, I guess, like kind of a big
Have you
furry
seen those
activity.
costumes? That's mayhem. I don't think anyone
Well, they kind of do it what they call granny style.
Oh, they granny bowl.
Some of them, like, actually then take their hand out of their
Nope, that's
paw.
cheating. You shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Well, you know what? You're not on the furry committee, so... unless you want to get yourself out there.
Okay, fine.
You can't make any judgments on their bowling.
All right, go on.
So the whole family was a little bit involved, and Jennifer Yost had married Christopher Yost, and this was now Caitlin's stepfather. And Jennifer and Chris had 2 children of their own that were age 6 and 9. And they were concerned with Caitlin's relationship with Frank Felix, who was too old for her. She was 17 and he was 27. And it's not entirely clear what the nature of the relationship was, if it was romantic or how involved they were. But I know that did create tensions. And there also had the mutual friend, Joshua Acosta, the brony that I told you about.
Okay.
So in the early morning of September 24th of 2016, the 9-year-old little girl woke up to find her parents both deceased. They were murdered. The father was in the backyard. He was trying to run away, and that's where she found him. The mother was shot in her bed, and they had a family friend, Arthur Boucher, and he was asleep on the couch and murdered. He was just a family friend that would stay over once in a while.
Okay.
And he was, I think, 28 years old. So the 3 adults are dead. The 9-year-old calls 911, and the police arrive. They can't find Caitlin. They don't know where Caitlin is, the 17-year-old daughter. Okay. So initially they're concerned about her, but she does come home, and she's fine. So they don't have to investigate for very long. They discover that it was Joshua Acosta that had murdered all of the family members in an effort to protect the little children and Caitlin from the stepfather.
From the stepfather.
Caitlin had made up a story. We're not sure if it's true or not, so I'll say made up at this point, because her story gets changed a lot, and she sort of redacts it, and we're not sure where the truth is on this. But she claimed sexual abuse by the stepfather, and Joshua went into this thinking he was protecting her and the other 2 little girls.
Okay.
So he murders the family.
Okay. But that's not like fetish-related murder. It just happened
Well,
to be.
it happened to be within this furry family. The whole family was involved in the furry community.
Okay.
And how she met Joshua Acosta was through a furry online community.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So Acosta went on to tell the police that he carried out the killings to protect the girls. And I'm not sure whatever happened with Frank Felix, because I couldn't find any information. I know that he was facing charges as well. But Caitlin then testifies against them, and so she gets immunity. And there's thought, too, that perhaps she sort of manipulated this whole situation because of she wanted to continue her relationship with Frank Felix, and that's really what this whole thing was about. She said she just wanted to run away and didn't know that there was any plan of them being murdered. So she escapes any sort of criminal charges, and she also said that on the night of the killings, she was planning on telling her family, telling her mother about the molestations, but I don't think that ever happened.
Something seems a little...
Yeah, none of it really sounds exactly right. But in Acosta's confession, he said that Caitlin Goodwill knew nothing about the murders, and neither did Frank Felix, that he just took it upon himself to do this. And I guess he just felt like he was doing the right thing. Sort of, what do they call that? When you take justice on yourself.
Oh, vigilante justice.
Vigilante justice, right. So... Joshua Acosta was sentenced to 75 years plus life in 2018.
How old is he at this time?
Back then, he was only I want to say he was 23 or 24.
Oh, okay. So he'll never theoretically see the outside of a prison.
No. And like I said, I don't know whatever happened with Frank Felix. His charges could still be pending. He may not have gone to court yet.
No.
He may not have seen trial yet.
Yeah, because that just happened in 2016.
Yeah, so we don't know what's happened to him yet. But yeah, they did meet through the online furry community. And there was a lot of people who were really devastated, I guess. They were very well liked, and especially Jennifer. She was really involved in the community.
I found kind of a similar story. Well, okay, I'll confess that I am going to tell this story because Michelle found it, and there was one bit of it that she said, I don't want to tell that. You tell that story.
Yeah.
Here's a story for you.
There's some things I just cannot handle.
Yeah. So, but this one is similar in that people are known in the community and relatively liked, it seems. But it was Jacob Berkowitz, 24-year-old guy, and Tanya Dillard, 27. And Tanya Dillard is an artist and was an artist and fursuit maker, known in the furry fandom, I guess is what they call it, was Vincent. But she also went by Vex, Volti, and Lockjaw. They had kind of this little business where they combined their efforts, Jacob and Tanya.
That's what I was familiar with. They had a successful website selling their furry costumes.
Lockjaw Arts, right? And so from what I can tell, to clarify that Jacob's just Jacob. He's a dude. Tanya has a pronoun preference that I believe is he. So to avoid any confusion, I'll do my best to just use Vincent, the name, so it's easier than trying to remember to say he all the time. Vincent was liked in the community, made awesome costumes, and then somewhere along the way meets this Jacob cat, and Jacob gave everyone the heebie-jeebies.
Really?
Yeah, there's some thought that there might have been some meth involved.
Oh.
And yeah, just something wasn't right, and he made everyone uncomfortable. And so, yeah, things seems to have changed after that. And then March of 2020, this is just this year, in Las Vegas, that's where they live, Paige, for privacy, leaving the last name out, but you can find it if you want to, goes to authorities because she thinks her friend, Tanya, Vincent, has gone off the deep end and killed someone.
Wasn't she pretty blatant about it?
Oh, dear Lord. So the way the conversation goes is she gets this call and Victor says, I skinned a dog. And I don't know if this is their dog or a dog. It's not clearly stated. For the fur, to make a furry costume. To which, of course, Paige is horrified. Okay, that's a little fucking strange. To which she replies, think that's strange. I'm sitting next to a dead body.
What do you say to that?
And then sends her photos.
Really?
Sends her photos. She had also, like, somewhere in the melee, she had one of the bullets. The dude was shot several times. One of the bullets hits her finger. So she's sending pictures of her bloody finger and this beaten body. Hector Mendez Hernandez, a 44-year-old guy. So she's horrified and disgusted and like sick to her stomach and goes to the cops immediately.
How did they get Hector there?
So they hatched this plan to lure a guy for sex so that they could steal his car and go live in the woods.
So murder wasn't the original intention?
No, I think they intended on killing him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, beyond that, I don't know. But I mean, so basically distracts Hector. Jacob then shoots him 4 times. He doesn't die, so he stabs him 25 times.
25 times?
And apparently, then he's still moving, so he bludgeons him to death with a dumbbell.
Wow.
Yeah. So when he's before the cops being interviewed, interrogated, whatever, and his answer is that I killed him because he touched Victor's thigh. And then you stabbed him 25 times and crushed his head with dumbbell several times?
Right. That's ridiculous. That's overkill. And you just escort someone out of your house. You don't stab them 25 times.
No. But yeah, so they basically hung out there in the house with the body for like 10 hours. And that's when Victor calls his friend and says, this craziness. And, they were going to stuff Hector in the refrigerator and take his car and go hide in the woods. And it was, I think, just like 5 PM. They hop in Hector's car, and the cops were already there, staking the joint, staking the house out, and pulled them in. And so,
what was the point of telling Paige? I don't understand that.
I have no clue. I mean, there was some point where he says, "So I guess I'm officially a psychopath now." Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. But then, so that aspect of this that brought it into my radar was or your radar, I guess, was the skinning the dog thing and taking furry too far. But I found nothing, and this, not to say it didn't happen, because this was just in March of 2020. And so this hasn't even gone through the court system. So if they actually skinned a dog, I have not seen any proof yet. I got as far as seeing they had a dog of their own named Castiel.
It's been mentioned, but we don't know why.
We don't know why. Well, I mean, Victor.
Oh, because Victor said that to Paige.
Yeah, I've been saying Victor.
Oh, Vincent, you're right.
I've been saying Victor, haven't I?
You started with Vincent.
Okay,
and
Vincent. Yeah, Vincent is the one that said, I skinned dog, and was supposedly bummed because, I don't know if it was because they didn't have the fur, the pelt anymore, or if it was damaged, they couldn't get it. It was, it was a lot of this I've found on online conversations and stuff. So hard to say. And because we can't confirm that fact yet, so I don't know that this either falls into any sort of fetish.
Right.
It's one of the stories that'll come up if you're looking for it. Ooh.
They really went off the deep end.
I mean, there's so many bizarre... There's some I looked through thinking, oh, here's something that is definitely going to lead to death, like quicksand fetish.
That's a thing?
The quicksand fetish. If you think about it, it makes sense that it would be. Like, it's how many Hollywood movies can you imagine that you've watched over the decades, going back the last 100 years of cinema? There's probably hundreds of some poor woman getting sucked into the quicksand. Someone's going to fetishize that at some point. But I couldn't find any stories.
There's also a fetish for crushing, like people that like to get crushed. Yeah,
you were telling me, I don't know if you did any research on it, but there was some guy that took it too far.
Yeah, he had a fetish too of filming small animals being crushed by women's feet. Like, that was his thing, which is super bizarre and gross. But then he also had a fantasy of being crushed himself and eventually talked someone into riding over him with a truck. Like, he put a board over himself, and then the truck stopped on top of him. But then they left and left the truck on top of him, and he died. But they were never able to figure out who it was that drove the truck on top of him and left him there.
Well, yeah, probably because they drove the truck on top of him, and they knew he was probably going to die.
I don't think he was dead right away, but then, of course, he eventually did die.
Of course. I mean...
But this guy was so weird with his crushing of small animals on video, and yeah.
Even the more mundane fetishes can go horribly wrong, man.
Really?
Oh, Jesus. I found a story in Romania. And again... It was just 2019. I don't know what it is, but fetish disasters are happening really common right now.
Careful out there, people.
Yeah. The 2020 thing. It ain't just that. Your fetish might kill you. But okay, this was in 2019, and some 55-year-old dude is facing life in prison now in Romania, which sounds like a horrifying prospect. Like, it's bad enough here, but... because he got a little too crazy with his partner. Callan Laurențiu is his name. I'm assuming I'm saying that right. And he was undertaking a sex act with a carrot with his girlfriend. I don't know. I don't think they were married. And she was 59. And they were in southern Romania, and she goes unconscious. And I don't know, I guess he was just going to town down there with a carrot for way too long. And she died of sepsis because the carrot punctured her colon.
Terrible.
Like, not to get graphic here or anything, but does anyone ever notice that your dick is not pointy?
Well,
They're not supposed to have pointy things in there.
and like once she's unconscious, like don't you stop? Like
Yeah,
that sounds like a violent
he
act.
claimed he was too drunk and then later realized she was unconscious. Dude, I mean, he called. After it occurred to me, I dressed her nicely in her pajamas and called you.
Oh my gosh. That's just not right.
Yeah, he claims he didn't torture her. It was just,
Yes, he did.
Jesus. I mean, hobophilia was sexual fantasies with homeless people.
Okay.
I think that one's made up. Some of these seem like things that people just made up. I mean, chelenophilia?
Like a cello?
No, or it might be chelenophilia.
Okay.
If you got a thing for turtles.
What? No.
Or
Like Ninja Turtles or
no,
turtles?
like real turtle. Although there might be someone out there into the Ninja Turtles too, you know.
I'm sure there's someone out there
gotta
into
be
the
someone.
Ninja Turtles.
In 1993, Carl Watkins was arrested in New Zealand. God, see, we're back in that side of the world again. What is this? And he
I'm
was
not going to say anything.
no, he was caught practicing chasmophilia,
What's that?
fucking a crack in the sidewalk.
I've heard of that, but I didn't know it was an actual thing.
Like, well, I mean, he
Why?
might. I don't know.
Why?
Well, there's some things that are called philias, you know, sexual fetishes, and they're not. There's another thing like melissophilia.
What's that?
I don't know where Melissa works into this name, but it's supposedly an arousal to bees and wasps, but it's not a fetish. Apparently, there's some whack jobs out there that intentionally sting themselves.
On their private parts?
Yeah, to make it bigger because it swells up.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Don't do that.
No, don't do that. And I mean, I got one more. Like the only obvious thing that I went into was pyrophilia.
Oh, right. Is that like the arson or
Right. Everyone knows
Pyromania.
pyromania, but if it's a sexually charged things, pyrophilia. Yeah, actually, that's not a bad album. That's Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Yeah. There, I had to say that.
We should have rocked out to that earlier.
Oh, damn it. Well, too late now.
On our break.
Okay. So, I mean, the first story I found turned out not to be. It was the story of Charlie Smith and Tanya Bundick, which is in Accomack County, Virginia. And basically, they set 60 fires over 6 months, just went nut job crazy, setting fires to abandoned shelters and stuff. So nobody was killed. But Smith was just an ex-druggie auto mechanic and ended up like unexpectedly meeting Tanya, that someone he felt was out of his league, and so he got insecure and couldn't get it up for her, but found that what did make her happy was setting fires. She would say, "Go set that house on fire."
Isn't that kind of unusual for a female pyromaniac?
But I don't know. Is she the pyro? I guess so. If she's using Charlie as the tool to set fires, yeah. But it's probably pretty rare.
I think so.
But that's what made her happy, and so they sent fires. But he claims it was not sex. It's not a fetish. I set fires for romance. I set them for love.
For love.
Oh, Jesus. But Thomas Sweatt, now there's a fucker that set fires for some fucked up reasons.
He had a fire fetish?
He had so the best I can tell is this is a dude who his intellectual development just stalled out at a certain point. Mm-hmm. And so all of his emotions, whether it was sexual gratification, anger, happiness, jealousy, anything, his go-to response was to set a fire.
That doesn't make sense.
No, he in the time that they know of, starting in, I think it was 1984, he set easily 340 fires
That's a
or more.
lot.
Killed 4 people.
Oh,
because he would
wow.
set the fires. What he would do is he would get a hard plastic juice jug because the little flimsy ones for milk and stuff, the gasoline will eat right through it. You have to have a hard plastic. So he'd get that, put in a black plastic bag so you couldn't see what was in it, and fill it with fuel, and then stick a cloth, like a sock or a shirt or something in there as a wick. And he would set it right in front of the front door.
I think I heard something about this a long time ago. I forgot about it. This was here in the U.S.?
Yeah, this was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And finally, in 2003, officials started connecting the dots that some of these fires, I think he must have upped the ante because it wasn't doing it as much for him.
Wouldn't he kind of hang out like when the fire department was there, then he would kind of lurk in the background?
I don't know if he would a lot. I didn't dig into it in the time we had, but I know he talks about in a book that he did there was a firefighter. He refused to do any interviews, and then finally a firefighter, I'm not going to remember the name, but I'll put a link on the website to his book. He convinced him to tell me this story, so he did. And yeah, his first story was that he was walking down the street sometime in the 80s and saw a guy he liked. He was gay. So he saw a guy he liked. So he turned around and started following him because that's what you do if you want someone to like you. And watches the guy walk up into his house. So he turns around and leaves, and you would think that'd be the end of it, but no, he goes and makes his little fire thing and goes and sets it on the door and basically...
Instead of leaving flowers?
Yeah, so the guy is standing out there in third-degree burns in his underwear, and his wife is upstairs burning to death.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you like a dude, and that was your go-to answer. But yeah, in 2003, they finally started connecting the dots and doing forensics and tracking down, because basically fuel is liquid, right? Everyone thinks that, well, it's burning. No, it's the fumes that are burning. Gasoline is liquid, at least in this state, right? So it actually protects, because it's cooler, it protects the bottom of the jug. And so those jugs would have markings on them. And so that, plus finding a hair here and there, they were able to track down a grocery store that only 2 grocery stores sold or used the jugs. And they found him living right next to one of those grocery stores. And yeah, and in that book, in those interviews for that book, he claims, it sounds like in the thousands, he was setting fires when they were a kid. They would build farts. They'd build farts. They would build forts, and then he couldn't resist. He would, after they were done playing in the fort, he would burn the forts down. So, did
he ever state that you're aware of what initially drew him to his pyromania or what it was?
I mean, you would have to read the book, and I haven't read the book. Yeah. He just liked it, and he would, it was for numerous reasons. Sometimes he would set the fire and then, jack off as he was driving away. That's
what made him satisfied, or he had a sexual association with the fires.
It seems like, from what I can tell, it's not that he had a sexual association with fire, he had an emotional association with fire. Right. Any emotion that he had, whether it was sexual, anger, jealousy, whatever, he acted it out.
So that was just one of the emotions.
Yeah, that was just one of the only way he seemed to know how to express his emotions was almost set fire to them.
Wow, what a dangerous person.
I know, that's a crazy...
So dangerous.
So
I remember my dad telling me when I was a kid about stories from when he was a kid about, I don't know if he was involved or if it was other kids that would put poop, like dog poop or whatever, I don't know what kind of poop, in these in paper bags, and then they would put it on people's doorsteps and light it on fire. And then they would ring the doorbell, and then the person would come out and see the bag on fire and stomp it to put it out, and then they would get poop all over their feet.
We knew about that as kids, but we did worse things, but
yeah, I don't remember anyone ever doing anything like that.
No one ever did that to me. We never did that to anyone else. We would do other things. We would get ice water and put it in squirt guns, and then shoot hot lights so that they would shatter because of the cold water.
Really?
It very rarely worked.
You're a little criminal. Juvenile delinquent.
I mean, if you like in our neighborhood, you didn't want to leave your door unlocked because we might have peed in it. It was terrible. We were horrible monsters when we were kids. I'm glad I've turned into a semi-normal person.
Yes.
Should I edit that out? Maybe I shouldn't have told that story.
About peeing in people's cars? Probably not. No, you just said doors. You didn't say cars, but I just know your story.
Oh, shit. Thanks. Now I know you've outed my story.
You should edit it out.
So there you go.
I fear that we'll have some edits on this tonight because we're so loose about all of this.
I think that kind of is going okay-ish.
Are we paused?
No, we're wrapping up. Yeah, I mean...
That went fast.
There you go. There's a
all
few...
that furry and poop talk went by really fast tonight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it went too fast. I didn't even get to talk about the serial butt slasher, but we'll just save that for another one.
Save that one. Something to look forward to, everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, our intro and outro music is H is for Horse by
Moonlight Magic.
And you can find their album on
Spotify
and
all things musical. Just Google them. You'll find them.
Google them. They're awesome. Hopefully you think we're awesome and share us and tell everyone else about us. And hey, don't forget that we built a little site on Patreon hoping somebody will donate, because if you've ever noticed, there's no ads on our show. Right.
We want to keep it that way.
Well...
or we'd like to for as long as we can.
Yeah, eventually, because this...
Or unless you do want to advertise with us, we welcome you.
Yeah, please don't turn that option off. Anyway, yeah, so check it out and maybe pitch in and we'll send you some goodies, Absolutely. We're going to come up with some really cool swag soon, so we'll keep you posted. But thanks, everyone, and... like us, share us, and leave comments. We love reading all of your feedback. Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wait. You've done that enough times that I think you have a kissing into microphones fetish.
Maybe I do. Maybe that's why I started this whole thing.
Oh, dear.